Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency's all-staff meeting. I'm Victoria Gonzalez-Gerlach, Senior Advisor and Acting Deputy Secretary for External Affairs at BSCH. Before we begin, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. Please note that your audio and video are disabled for this meeting, but you can communicate with us in the question and answer box. Please use the Q&A box to ask questions and respond to our poll questions, which we will test out shortly. Please know that this town hall is being recorded and closed captioning is available today. To access, please click the gear icon in the bottom right corner of your Teams screen and click on Captions, Subtitles to activate. We plan on sending the recording of today's meeting and materials, including an exit survey, via email. Now, I'd like to start by testing out the Q&A function with our first poll question. Please tell us where you are joining from today. I'll give you a few moments to drop your answer in the chat now, and our team will publish the responses. With over 12 entities and 6,500 employees, BCSH department offices are throughout California. Today, I'm working from the BCSH office here in Sacramento. Okay, let's see what folks are saying. It looks like we've got quite a few responses from Sacramento. Good morning, everybody. And we've got some Southern California responses as well. I see quite a few showing from the HCD headquarters and from DCA. It's amazing. Thank you so much for participating. We have a full agenda today, and we'll start with welcoming remarks from our agency secretary, Lourdes Castro Ramirez. Then we will hear from Undersecretary Melinda Grant about the 2022 agency priorities and pillars. Next, we'll hear from 4 of our departments, the Departments of Fair Employment and Housing, Cannabis Control, Consumer Affairs, and the California Housing Finance Agency about how they are incorporating the 4 pillars in their work. Finally, we'll have an opportunity to answer a few of your questions. Before I hand it over to our secretary, I want to note that if you have any coworkers that are waiting in the lobby, please be sure to share the link that you are accessing the team from now. Now, I want to go ahead and introduce our agency secretary, Lourdes Castro Ramirez, to say a few words. Secretary?
All right, well, good morning. Thank you so much, Victoria. And I recognize that we still have some members of the BCSH family joining us. Thank you, of course, for your patience. It's not easy to find the right platform to accommodate over 6,000 employees, and so we very much appreciate your patience. Good morning again. Feliz año, a happy new year to everyone. It is great to see so many members joining us for this first of the year all staff town hall meeting. This is an opportunity for us to share our agency's priorities and pillars, the pillars that sustain the work that we do throughout the year. It's also an opportunity to showcase the great work that is occurring across departments and to answer questions that you may have. I'd like to start by thanking our executive team and the department directors across our agency for their leadership day in and day out to protect Californians, especially during this ongoing public health crisis. I also would like to thank you for working in earnest to ensure that consumers are protected, that people have a place to call home, and that civil rights are guarded here in our state. In 2021, we accomplished a lot together, despite many obstacles, including COVID, drought, fires, and ongoing housing insecurity. Moving ever forward, we made great progress implementing Governor Gavin Newsom's comeback plan. from distributing rental assistance and keeping over 150,000 low-income renter families in their homes, to providing direct relief to small businesses and licensees, and to guarding against discrimination in the workplace. Together, we delivered vital relief, protections, and services to thousands of Californians. Last week, the governor unveiled his proposed budget, the California Blueprint, with a focus on addressing the crises of today with COVID and climate emergencies, and a commitment to building our state's economic growth and a future in which everyone sees themselves in. The California Blueprint builds on the momentum and work over the last few years and includes some key investments to tackle 5 of the state's greatest threats: COVID-19, worsening wildfires and drought, persistent inequality, homelessness, and public safety. Across agency, the California Blueprint includes $6.3 billion in the proposed budget to resolve encampments, to preserve and expand housing affordability, and to target investments to create resilient and integrated neighborhoods. There's also funding to help streamline cannabis licensing and strengthen consumer protection systems, funding to create critical outreach and education to student loan borrowers, and funding to collect and analyze pay equity data. These investments will bolster our state's strong economic growth and will enable us to build a more inclusive California. Over the past year, I had the opportunity to visit with many licensees, with many local partners and stakeholders throughout the state, to hear firsthand how our policies, our programs, and the work that you do is making a difference. For example, last month, I had an opportunity to join Director Harada on a ride-along in Sacramento with ABC enforcement officers, and I saw how they interact with licensees to educate, to enforce, and to protect consumers and communities. A few months ago, I met with the Kashaya Band of Pomo Indians to learn about their efforts to address homelessness and much needed housing for tribal members, and also to see their home key site in Sonoma County. And most recently, I received a message from Margarita. Margarita lives in LA, and she writes that she had been out of work for almost 6 months due to her COVID scare and her loss of income. She said, "I received rental assistance through Housing is Key. It has taken so much stress off of me, and I'm thankful and internally grateful. Thank you for looking out for us." Testimonies from people like Margarita remind me of the importance of our work as government professionals and public servants. Let me pause here to acknowledge the personal sacrifices and the loss that many of you have experienced over the past 2 years. We understand that working in the midst of this global pandemic and with so much uncertainty has brought daunting challenges. Our leadership stands ready to do everything that we can to ensure that each of you have the support, the resources, and the tools needed to not just survive, but to thrive. On behalf of the governor and on behalf of agency leadership, thank you. Thank you for your perseverance. Thank you for your resilience and your grit in continuing to deliver your work with excellence. And a sincere appreciation also for taking steps to protect yourself, your loved ones, your colleagues, and those around you by getting vaccinated and boosted against COVID-19. I'm proud to note that over 80%, in fact, Tiffany Garcia said to me this morning that we're at 82%. 82% of our 6,500 employees are vaccinated. For those of you that have not had an opportunity to get vaccinated, I encourage you to do so. Do it for yourself, do it for your families, do it for your community. As I close, I want to reflect and share that I understand and I know that this road has not been easy. As we continue to move forward, let us lean on each other and let us continue to care for those that are often left behind. Let us prioritize the growth and the well-being of individuals and their communities. And let us continue to lead with integrity, professionalism, and compassion in action. You inspire me every single day, and you make me proud to be your secretary. Now, let me introduce an incredibly dedicated leader, Undersecretary Melinda Grant. For those of you who work closely with Melinda, you know that her smile is bright and contagious. That positive smile and spirit drives her efforts to make BCSH the safest and best place to work. Melinda, take it away with an overview of the 2022 agency pillars and priorities. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Secretary, and good morning. Good morning to everyone. Secretary, just thank you so much for your grace and your grit and your grind and leading this phenomenal agency. It's an absolute honor to work with you, and it's an absolute honor to work with everyone on this call and to even be part of this today. Like the Secretary mentioned, it's the road has not been easy. But oftentimes we have to remember how we got here, and we got here with a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat and tears at times. But there's a common goal, and we're going to talk about some of those common goals. What we have created here today is to talk about pillars. Because our agency is so broad and so vast and so beautifully made between housing and consumer services, is that we really wanted to focus the attention on what are the things that also bring us together, regardless of the issue, regardless of the topic, regardless of your position. There is a common thread and a link that goes through all of us. And so thinking about 2022 and thinking about all the work that has been done over the years, but particularly 2021, we really wanted to focus our attention on these 4 pillars, which thankfully we're going to hear more about today. So I wanted to first start off with the people, the you, the me, the us, the neighbors, the family members, the consumers, the people who we serve. Behind the policy, behind the data, behind all of the work are the people that we serve. And so as we go through our day-to-day and we're trying to find those common themes, and if it's getting a little challenging or a little rough, we want to center it back on the people, keeping the focus on the people and really making sure that we have a people-centered approach to the policy. Service delivery. Obviously, service delivery goes across the board. Rather, we're processing documents. Thank you so much for those wonderful reports, by the way. Or whether we are responding and meeting quotas for our licensing and enforcement timelines, providing service not only to the people, but also to one another, and how we respond to one another and how we help one another, how we collaborate with one another. So again, prioritizing in 2022 the service delivery, and remember the customer service experience. Like when the bill collectors call, or when that family member calls that you haven't heard from in a while, you want to kind of go back to, okay, how can I best service this issue? How can I best service the people? And so really keeping service delivery at the forefront is definitely something that we're looking at in 2022. The third, efficient implementation. We have implementation across the board, obviously, at this agency. That's the root and cause of everything that we do is implementation. But the timing of how we do that implementation, the efficiency of how we do that implementation is obviously at the pillar in the forefront of what we're looking at today. Coming off the California Comeback Plan and all the work and all the historical investments that were made, we are so proud of that work, but we also want to build on that momentum. We also want to build on the lessons learned. How did we, get over the hump when we didn't even know we were even in a hump? How do we learn from each other? How do we cross-pollinate with the different departments and divisions that are within our agency? So definitely looking at efficient implementation, not just getting it done, but getting it done in a new, unique, creative way that continues to make us thrive and go far beyond and exceed our expectations. Lastly, I wanted to just talk about a space where sometimes we forget to talk about. And we want to talk about really those that sometimes we often forget about, and that is the vulnerable populations. What are the true opportunities in the work? How do we create the opportunity, sustain the opportunity, promote the opportunity in all the work that we do? So here's the good news. The very, very good news is that today we're going to hear from at least 3 or 4 departments, as our colleagues had talked about earlier, around the work that is already being done within these 4 pillars. So I'm very, very excited for you to hear about the work and really, really excited about setting forth the pathway of like what really connects us all together continuously, which we believe really starts with the people-centered approach to policy, keeping service delivery at the forefront, remembering implementation, not in just because it's implementation, but efficient implementation. And then lastly, the opportunity. And remembering at the end of the day, it's all about what can we make out of what seems to be a very challenging situation, but something that became a very beautiful surprise. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Deputy Secretary Erica Gonzalez to take us through the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Undersecretary Grant. Over the past year, our departments have accomplished great things to continue advancing our mission. Today, we will hear from 4 of our departments about the ways they are exemplifying the 4 pillars in their work. This is just a snapshot of the many wonderful things we've accomplished across all our departments this past year. First, I want to introduce the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, which will be giving a presentation on their work to guard the civil rights of employees throughout the state and highlight our first pillar, people-centered approach to policy. The Department of Fair Employment and Housing is the state agency charged with enforcing California's civil rights. DFEH's mission is to protect the people of California from unlawful discrimination in employment, housing, businesses, and state-funded programs, and from bias-motivated violence and human trafficking. Recently, they received national media attention for their work in keeping Riot Games accountable for workplace sex discrimination and harassment through a $100 million settlement and systemic reforms. DFEH's work is an example of how our departments are centering people, their real-life stories and experiences in their work. Brandon Butler, DFEH's Assistant Deputy Director of Outreach and Education, will now share more. Brandon.
Good morning, and thank you, Erica. Again, my name is Brandon Butler, the Assistant Deputy Director of Outreach and Education for DFEH, California Civil Rights Agency. Our mission is a discrimination-free California. We investigate, mediate, and prosecute violations of California civil rights laws, not only in areas of employment and housing, but also related to businesses open to the public, state-funded programs and activities, hate violence, and human trafficking. We also have an exciting outreach and education program that aims to reduce bias in our state. And I want to thank the Secretary and the entire BSCH team for this opportunity to spotlight the incredible work happening at DFEH, which reflects the BSCH pillar of the people-centered approach to policy, among other pillars. Now, let me highlight how just in a few ways. First, I'm going to talk about our civil rights media campaign. In order to both prevent discrimination and help victims get the help they need, we must educate Californians about their civil rights and how DFEH can help them when they face discrimination, harassment, or retaliation. In 2021, DFEH launched our first multilingual civil rights media campaign, focusing on employment, housing, and anti-Asian bias. The campaign resulted in over 100 million impressions of a variety of anti-bias messages. These messages were featured in radio spots, videos, and on posters in 7-Elevens and other stores, including on lunch trucks throughout the farms in the Central Valley, El Centro, and on social media and through internet searches. We also collected the materials on our webpage, which, if you are able to see the PowerPoint, you've been able to see these slides. Let me talk about another way that we're impacting the BSCH pillar of the people-centered approach. We talk about Riot Games. Through our department's prosecutions of civil rights cases in court, DFEH leads the way in removing discriminatory barriers for Californians. For example, in 2021, DFEH filed a joint motion for entry of a landmark consent decree to resolve allegations that the gaming company Riot Games engaged in systemic sex discrimination and harassment. Under the consent decree, Riot will pay over $100 million to remedy violations against approximately 1,065 women employees and 1,300 women contract workers. The decree requires comprehensive injunctive relief in the form of workplace reforms, independent expert analysis of Riot's pay, their hiring and their promotion practices, and independent monitoring of sexual harassment and retaliation at their California offices for 3 years. If approved by the court, this is truly a victory toward achieving a California free of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation at work. Now let me talk about another way we impact the BSCH pillar of the people-centered approach, which is our pay data project. Closing the wage gap related to sex and race is one of the major civil rights issues of our time. And to help close the wage gap, beginning last year, employers of 100 or more employees must report to DFEH their data on the pay, the hours worked, and demographics of their workforce. In little more than a few months, DFEH successfully launched this major program, receiving more than 20,000 employer reports in 2021. DFEH is now analyzing the data and expects to publish results in the near future, and is gearing up for the 2022 reporting season. Employers' pay data reports will allow DFEH to more efficiently identify wage patterns and allow for effective enforcement of equal pay or anti-discrimination laws when appropriate. And a project near and dear to my heart that I think truly lives up to BSCH pillar is our Fair Chance Act and Source of Income Compliance Project. In order to get us closer to a world free of discrimination, DFEH not only uses traditional outreach and education, such as legal guides and webinars, but also uses technology and data to drive proactive measures to stop discrimination. An example is our Fair Chance Act and Source of Income Compliance Project. DFEH, using a web-based coding program, scrapes the internet for discriminatory job advertisements that stated a preference to hire people without criminal histories, such as no felons, etc. And DFEH also reviews housing rental ads for statements that would say, like, will not rent to someone with a Section 8 voucher. Those will not be accepted. These statements violated California's Fair Employment and Housing Act. Discriminatory ads such as these may disproportionately impact communities of color and continue the cycle of segregation, poverty, and incarceration. Based on these searches in 2021, DFEH sent nearly 900 violation letters to employers and landlords, mandating that the discriminatory ads be removed from the internet and that they follow California law in the future. Toward that end, DFEH has provided employers and landlords with a suite of resources so they can understand their obligations. And DFEH obtained nearly 99% compliance from employers and landlords who responded to our compliance letter program. And as we move into 2022, we're also excited to announce another way we're connecting with the BSCH pillar of the people-centered approach to policy. Is we are now embarking on a Spanish language outreach program that will be dedicated to really impacting our Latinx community throughout California. And we're excited to launch that this year. And again, DFEH is California's civil rights agency. We work for you. And on behalf of the entire DFEH team, thank you for letting us share how our civil rights work is positively impacting all Californians. And I thank everyone, and I thank BSCH, and I will now throw it back to our BSCH team.
Thank you, Brandon. That was awesome. Now I want to go work for DFEH. No, I'm kidding. I am Leila Maraschidi, Deputy Secretary of Business and Consumer Relations. Today, I have the honor of introducing 2 of the 6 departments I have the pleasure to work with every day to ensure that consumers are protected in California. First, I'd like to introduce and welcome our Department of Cannabis Control. The Department of Cannabis Control is the newest department within our agency and has already hit the ground running. The Department of Cannabis Control licenses and regulates cannabis businesses, including the growing of cannabis plants, the manufacture of cannabis, and the retail sale of cannabis products. Last summer, the department was created through the consolidation of the Bureau of Cannabis Control programs within the Department of Food and Agriculture and the Department of Public Health. Through the consolidation, the Department of Cannabis Control has been able to streamline the enforcement and regulation of the cannabis industry to better serve our licensees and consumers in California. Their work is a great example of Pillar 2, service delivery improvements. Now, I would like to introduce the great Christina Dempsey, Acting Deputy Director of External Affairs at the Department of Cannabis Control.
Thank you, Leila. Can you just let me know if you can see my slides?
We get
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Dempsey. I'm the Acting Deputy Director of External Affairs for the Department of Cannabis Control. There is a popular phrase among those who work in cannabis programs in government, and it's that this work is like building a plane while you're flying it. It's the idea that you launch a major initiative before you fully planned out the details. This is the story of the cannabis programs at the state of California. DCC is not only implementing, but also continuing to rapidly build and modify this framework in which we do our work, all while market forces continue to change in California. DCC's role is to license and regulate all commercial cannabis activity in California, as Leila shared. As part of this role, we inspect licensees for compliance with the regulations and we investigate complaints. We also work closely with the state, local, and federal partners to investigate and prosecute unlicensed activity. When the department was formed, we had to quickly stand up our programmatic infrastructure, continue operations with as little disruption to licensees as possible, and launch a number of programs and initiatives. A few of those early accomplishments are listed here. When the department was formed, without the work and dedication of our staff, we wouldn't have been able to achieve these public milestones and to accomplish what we have in such a short amount of time. Behind the scenes, to set up this new department, we had to quickly establish a leadership team and begin recruitments for vacancies. We fully implemented Fiscal, and we began integrating 3 distinct cultures into one, including by launching a monthly staff newsletter and beginning all staff meetings. In 2022, we are building a comprehensive inspection program that enhances compliance and accountability for all businesses. We will conduct multiple regulatory actions to further simplify and enhance the cannabis framework. This includes ongoing direct engagement with equity applicants and licensees to understand their unique needs and challenges. We will continue to offer support and technical assistance for local governments, including as they create new pathways for businesses to participate in the licensed legal marketplace. And we'll continue to transition provisional licenses into annual licensure. We have a lot to be proud of, but we also know that there is still a lot of work to do. This is going to be an exciting and challenging year as we continue to grow, build, and foster our internal and external relationships and establish trust among our stakeholder community. We'll leave you here with our newly established mission, vision, and values, which embody the service delivery pillar, and which were built with input from team members across the department. And Leila, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Christina. Great work, DCC. Now I would like to introduce the Department of Consumer Affairs to talk about some of the innovative ways they've been able to adapt during the pandemic and increase efficiencies throughout the pandemic. The Department of Consumer Affairs administers more than 3.4 million licenses in more than 280 license types across 37 boards and bureaus. The licenses range from doctors to nurses, therapists, and all of our healing arts professionals to contractors, accountants, architects, and many more. DCA protects and serves consumers in many ways, including the licensing of professions, regulation of industries, and education of consumers. DCA has successfully adapted their communications to meet the diverse needs of Californians and quickly communicate changes in licensing fees and regulations due to the pandemic. It is my pleasure to introduce the fabulous Monica Vargas, Deputy Director of Communications, the Department of Consumer Affairs.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Leila. Appreciate it. My name is Monica Vargas, and I am Deputy Director of Communications here at the California Department of Consumer Affairs. Our mission here at the department is bottom line consumer protection. And today I'll be sharing some of the many highlights that we are so very proud of here at DCA on the topic of adapting during the pandemic through creative solutions and expanded communications, which is Pillar 3, efficient implementation. And the first area, so we'll be touching on 3 different areas today. If we can go to the next slide. Okay, so the first area that we will be touching on is in the area of technology, systems, and service. So while the pandemic has brought many challenges, it has also taught DCA and our boards and bureaus to adapt and to be creative with solutions. DCA has greatly increased the ability to provide services online, and the department has enabled 20 new applications via the Connect online platform. Additionally, DCA has implemented an application status lookup in the Breeze platform, reducing costs and accommodating the ability of these services online. Throughout the department, we are also implementing Microsoft Teams telephone services, which is modernizing and at the same time reducing costs and accommodating remote work more efficiently. And the Microsoft Teams telephone services is currently in the process and going on throughout the department and helping us further adapt to the telework environment. As you know, our department has many boards and bureaus, and the meetings and having the public be able to access those are very important to us. And so throughout the pandemic, we have adapted to that as well. Last year, DCA boards and bureaus held more than 350 remote public meetings, enabling us to continue to carry out our duties to protect consumers in California and to be accessible to the public. These meetings were conducted largely via WebEx and supported by DCA's Solid unit. And this great collaboration allowed nearly 12,000 individuals to continue to attend these public meetings throughout the pandemic. And we continue to utilize new technology to efficiently collaborate and continue operations, even though many are still working remotely. The next area that I would like to highlight at the Department of Consumer Affairs and our boards and bureaus is the areas of waivers, regulations, and relief. As many of you know, DCA waivers have been instrumental through the pandemic. DCA has worked closely with boards, bureaus, executive staff, and the governor's office to research, prepare, and respond to questions to the numerous waivers of state law that facilitated the continued provision of care to individuals affected by COVID-19 and allowed applicants and licensees to continue their professions despite public health restrictions and other impediments resulting from the pandemic. To date, the department has issued 214 waivers. So those waivers helped us to continue our mission and to also enhance the state's response throughout the pandemic. Additionally, I wanted to highlight the California State Athletic Commission. The commission promulgated regulations on an emergency basis to hold combative sporting events when an infectious disease causes a state of emergency. The emergency regulations continue to help the commission maintain essential health and safety practices for the commission's employees and licensees. Another highlight I'd like to add is the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. The board implemented renewal fee waivers to its licensees, and in 2021, more than 281,000 licensees were renewed via the fee waivers, which resulted in approximately 13.8 million in savings to Board of Barbering and Cosmetology licensees. So definitely continuing to, other examples of how the department adapted throughout the pandemic and found solutions and in support of the licensees and the public. The final area that I would like to touch on is coordinated internal and external communications. As we all know, coordinated communications is always important, but it's even more important and more critical during a pandemic to ensure consistent and reliable information is being provided to licensees, the public, and our stakeholders. Throughout the pandemic, DCA and its boards and bureaus coordinated communications and proactively shared information on waivers, COVID-19 messaging, public meetings, and partner agency information. The goal being to share accurate, timely, important information with those who needed it. This information was shared via the numerous platforms to ensure the widest reach, and those platforms included social media, email, listservs, newsletters, websites, and more. In terms of internal communications, COVID-19 information, department updates, agency updates have been shared regularly here with our own employees to assure that we are also communicating effectively within our department and with our employees. DCA has also developed multilingual social media messaging and assets to further expand our department's outreach. We recently updated our board and bureau vacancy recruitment kit, and it includes multiple messages in California's top 5 languages to further expand our communication and reach to Californians to join the consumer protection effort. And this past year further showed us the importance and the value of internal and external communications. In closing, DCA is always looking at ways to be more efficient, to collaborate, and to expand our reach in our mission to protect California consumers. Again, thank you, and thank you to everyone at DCA. We are very proud of the work of the department and the boards and the bureaus in protecting Californians. Thank you to agency as well, and for the opportunity to share these highlights. And now I would like to hand it off to Deputy Secretary Sasha Kurgan.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, and amazing job, DCA. I'm Sasha Wasatsky-Kurgan. I'm the Deputy Secretary of Housing and Consumer Relations. And today I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to introduce the California Housing Finance Agency, or Chaffey. So in a moment, you'll hear from their Executive Director, who will provide an overview of California's Mortgage Relief Program. This was just recently launched to help homeowners impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic get caught up on their housing payments, on their mortgage. So the work that Chaffey is doing through the Mortgage Relief Program is an example of how BSCH and its departments are increasing opportunity for vulnerable populations and advancing equity. The pandemic has disproportionately impacted low-income households and people of color. And along with the Rent Relief Program, this free Mortgage Relief Program aims to minimize the impact on those households by providing vital relief. For more than 40 years, the California Housing Finance Agency has supported the needs of renters and homebuyers throughout the state by providing financing and programs so that more low to moderate income Californians have a place to call home. So now I want to introduce Chaffey's Executive Director, Tina Johnson-Hall, to tell us more. Tina?
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Sasha. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. As you just heard, my name is Tina Johnson-Hall, and I'm in my first year as Executive Director of the California Housing Finance Agency. However, I was a Chaffey board member for 7 years prior to the appointment. So I have been a part of this collective state effort to provide affordable housing to the people of California for quite some time. And in that time, what I've found is one of the absolute keys to success is creating alignment between all of the different entities that are doing this work, from the governor to the legislator, on down to various departments, and of course the agency, many of which, and all those departments that are represented here on the call. That's why I really love the concept of these 4 pillars that we are talking about today, because we can use them in a way to unite our path forward. So with that in mind, I first want to thank the secretary and her staff and the leadership and staff from all of the fellow housing agencies that I work with, HCD, the Department of Real Estate, DFPI, and the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. That gratitude is not only for the work that you all do every day to address California housing challenges, but also for your willingness to collaborate. I think it's a beautiful thing. I also want to do a quick shout out to the CalHFA staff who have worked tirelessly, even while dealing with me, and all the other things that we have to deal with, including the most recent wave of the pandemic. So thank you to those guys. Now I want to spend some time really talking about the 4th pillar, which centers around opportunity and increasing access to vulnerable populations. A portion of CalHFA's team has been working very, very hard for several months to stand up the California Mortgage Relief Program. And we are all glad to be at this point where we are today to get these federal funds out to help struggling homeowners across California. It's been a big lift because California was allocated by far the biggest piece of the Homeowner Assistance Fund. $1 billion. I'm sorry, $1 billion. That's 10% of the entire allocation for the country. We opened up the application portal up on Monday after Christmas, and earlier this month, we held a great launch event with Secretary Castro Ramirez, as well as Commissioner Hewlett from the DFPI and the Honorable Congresswoman Maxine Waters. This program provides up to $80,000 to help qualified homeowners who have suffered a pandemic-related hardship. And this is going to help them get caught up on their mortgage, as well as create an equity position for them, unlike none other. We've been in the business of helping folks for over 40 years, as Deputy Secretary Sasha said. But this program, this one is the one that's going to be the game changer. All of the eligibility requirements and the application portal are available on the website at californiamortgagerelief.com. When I hear those numbers, I keep going back to $1 billion because I've got to tell you, I've been a banker for 20 years and I've never seen a wire for $1 billion. It knocked my socks off. But that $1 billion, up to $80,000 in grant per household, it sounds large, but what I think it shows is the great need in California and the size of the affordability challenge that our state is facing. I'm listening hard to Secretary Lourdes when she said lean in. And I'm also listening to Undersecretary when she said, let's take a challenging situation and make a beautiful surprise. It's those small touch points and that kind of energy that CalHFA will embrace and expand on as we take on these new and exciting challenges. Thank you all. Have a great day. And now I'll turn it back over to Victoria.
Thank you, Executive Director Tina Johnson-Hall, for those wonderful remarks about what CalHFA is doing to provide opportunity for Californians. And thank you to all of our departments for the great presentations on your hard work. This is just a slice of what all of our department teams are doing to create a more prosperous California for all. Now we're going to open it up for some questions. Thank you to those of you who pre-submitted questions in advance of the meeting. If you'd like to submit a question, please enter it in the Q&A box now. So first, we have a question. We've got quite a few questions regarding telework. So Secretary Castro Ramirez, will you please provide an update on what employees can expect with regards to the future of telework and where to learn more about their department's plans for telework?
Yes, thank you, Victoria. And let me first, again, just echo the comments that you've just made with regard to the presentations. Just really amazing demonstration of the work and the commitment that is happening across agency. Thank you to all the presenters. And of course, thank you to the staff at each of these departments and entities for the work that you do every single day. With regard to telework and what we can expect into the future, our agency is continuing to encourage departments to enhance their telework policies and models and approaches to ensure that we are mindful of the impact that this pandemic is continuing to have on employees. And as departments develop their telework policies at agency, we have a team that is ready to assist with additional resources and tools. But these telework policies and plans, I know that vary from department to department depending on the business and the focus and the needs of the employee base. I'd like to maybe invite also our Deputy Secretary for Fiscal Policy and Administration to share a little more in terms of the most recent guidance that has been shared with us through CalHR. So Tiffany Garcia, if you're on, would you elaborate? Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Secretary. Just to give a couple of updates regarding telework. So all departments are required to submit draft plans to the Department of General Services by the end of this month, and then DGS will review those and approve, and then departments are required to have a policy in place by October. And in terms of resources, the Government Operations Agency has established a telework website, and we're happy to send that link around that has both resources for managers, supervisors, and employees. So more information can be found there. Thank you. And I'll turn it back to Victoria for additional questions.
Wonderful, thank you so much. We also received a question about what our agency and our departments are doing to combat climate change. For example, is HCD or BSCH supporting the electrification in new homes or retrofitting other ones? This employee notes that for many of us that feel powerless about global warming, it is uplifting to know that the agencies we work for, which have much more collective power, are taking action to ensure California remains livable. So Secretary Castro Ramirez, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, thank you so much, Victoria. And I very much appreciate this question and also the sentiment behind the importance of looking at climate change as a collective responsibility that we all have. This is why I'm so proud that the governor and many of the agencies across the state have come together to double down on addressing climate change in all that we do. So last week, as the governor announced the California Blueprint, and as we conducted and gathered with a number of stakeholders, it was very much an opportunity to demonstrate how the state is working across agencies to address climate change, whether that be in housing, whether that be in terms of the impact that climate change is having to farmers, to the workforce. And you will see that our agency is very much in the middle, helping to ensure that the work that we're doing is geared at addressing climate change. And so one specific example of that is We're collaborating very closely with the Strategic Growth Council and also with several of our partners at the Natural Resources Agency and also the Energy Agency to coordinate and to co-invest as we address housing development, as we connect housing opportunities within neighborhoods. And that includes also promoting and encouraging to move away from issues that create more pollution. So to move into electrification of new homes, to be mindful about how we retrofit and how we build new housing. And so there are very specific investments that drive this climate sort of agenda. And I'd like to maybe invite Sasha here to provide a little more detail in terms of how we're doubling down on climate change.
Great, thank you, Secretary. Like you, I love this question, and in part because the state has been working in earnest on this in connecting housing and climate for many years. Our agency, and specifically the Department of Housing and Community Development, works closely with the Building Standards Commission for over a decade on the Cal Green Code, which is a part of the state's building code that promotes changes and sustainable practices, all that benefit residents and help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So that's a way that we work within the codes to support better action and really lead the nation, and with a model that's been adopted in many states and many countries to improve building systems. Additionally, agency and Chaffey join many other departments in a housing and decarbonization working group where we advance more strategies to address climate change, again, by focusing on updating building systems that improve energy conservation, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, promote health and safety for the residents and the people who work in buildings. So those building equipment retrofit incentives, like those that are proposed in the governor's budget, will encourage that kind of decarbonization of existing buildings. That looks like transitioning from natural gas boilers and furnaces, water heaters, and cooking appliances to more modern electric appliances. All that helps improve air quality and reduce greenhouse gas emissions for some of our most vulnerable residents, but really for us all. We're excited about the investments in the blueprint that can help promote these types of building upgrades, and we know that by aligning land use, building systems, and all of our work connecting these investments with our efforts to improve and increase the production and preservation of affordable housing, will make substantial and more significant efforts in the fight against climate change. So thanks for the question. Victoria?
Wonderful, and thank you for an update on what the state is doing to combat climate change. We have come up against our hour, so now we are going to go ahead and turn it over to Secretary Castro Ramirez for closing remarks. But before we do, we wanted to remind you that we will be sending out an exit survey and encourage you to participate that way. Let us know your thoughts on today's meetings and how we can improve our meeting in the future. We will also be capturing the questions that we have here today, those that were not answered live, so that way we can provide responses as much as possible. So, Secretary?
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you to you and also Jason. Thank you so much behind the scenes making this all happen. I very much appreciate all of your work and coordination and that of many other folks that were instrumental in bringing us together. Thank you again for joining us this morning for the all-staff meeting. We're so excited to kick off 2022 with a reminder of what drives the work that we do at agency through the introduction of the 4 pillars. I'd like to thank also the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, the Department of Cannabis Control, the Department of Consumer Affairs, and the California Housing Finance Agency for your insightful presentations and for the reminder, right, of the vast diversity of effort that takes place every single day across our agency. It is truly amazing to witness the many ways that our departments serve Californians by protecting consumers, by ensuring that people have a place to call home and by guarding the civil rights of all Californians every single day. We do this by keeping people at the forefront of the work that we do, being people-centered, being reminded of who we're serving, being reminded also of who we work with, right, and how we interact with each other. We also do this by striving to improve our service delivery, to meet people where they're at, to ensure that no one gets left behind, and to ensure that we're creating greater opportunity, greater stability, and a greater future for all Californians. Thank you for the commitment that you bring to work every single day, whether you're working from home or working in the office. We truly appreciate what you do for California every single day. I look forward to the many accomplishments that I know will occur again in 2022. Of course, I look forward to getting out to community, visiting with more of you, getting out to visit with more of our partners and stakeholders throughout the year. And so with that, have a great afternoon and a great 2022. And thank you again for joining us.